And look at just how tight it is at the top of the Premier League table now. Liverpool and Manchester United only separated on goal difference, and the two face off on the 17th of January. And by then, Manchester United will have played their game in hand against Burnley, so could be top. So yes, it's all getting very exciting at the top of the Premier League table. And joining me to discuss both of those teams and plenty more on today's show, the Manchester City correspondent for The Athletic, Sam Lee, former Premier League defender Chris Samba, and of course, Wrighty is here once again. Wrighty, you had a big smile on your face watching that VT because it's getting very exciting, isn't it?
It is, Kels, and the only ones that's really missing out, I can't say Arsenal with their current form, but Chelsea. But other than that, the top of the league is starting to take that shape with the protagonist, the normal protagonist in there. But it is tight and it is close. And, the emergence of City, United, all of a sudden, 2 months ago, you wouldn't have seen them up there. You can't count Tottenham out of it. But it's really, I'm quite pleased that it's like it is now. It's very tight. And it's up to now a team to actually say, batten down their hatches and say, right, let's get going now. This is it. After Christmas, let's string some good performances together and see if we can get some daylight with us and the other teams.
Well, Liverpool are, of course, the team to beat, the defending champions. Chris, what have you made of them recently? Because it hasn't been the type of performances and the run of form that we've been used to for Jurgen Klopp's side. Yeah,
it's been a difficult period for them, with the injury. I think with the spine missing, the Van Dijk and Matip, Joe Gomez been absent. Fabinho had to drop into the defense, so now he's missing in midfield. So it's been difficult. Diego Jota was a big part of this early success, and now he's also sidelined. So it's difficult, but they're still top of the league. So big credit to them, and it's a little bit scary because you have to think, oh, they're gonna come back and gonna get running, and this could be difficult. You don't want them to pull off like last season. You want it to keep exciting for us fans.
Is that something we have to remember, Sam? The fact that we all talk about these problems, the fact that Liverpool aren't the machine that we've maybe become accustomed to, but they are still top of the league.
Yeah, of course, but it's like teams like Liverpool, Man United previously, Man City throughout 2020, kind of held up by their own high standards. And as soon as they dip below that a bit, you start thinking, what's going on here? This must be a disaster. What's going wrong? But it's just all of those injuries, as Chris said, but also only 3 teams in the Premier League era have retained the title successfully, and only 1 in the last 10 years. So it's almost like the intangibles. There's just nothing you can do after you've won the title, generally, to keep that level up. So it's already hard. The deck's already stacked against you. Everyone wants to beat you anyway. Liverpool, even the season when they didn't win the title the year before, when they got the 97-ish points finishing behind City, they were still going all out. So they're going to be tired. It's a crazy league this season. And then you throw those injuries in as well. They're doing amazingly to be what they are. And what they are is actually top of the league. They won't be far from the top at the end of the season.
The thing, of course, because of the quality they've got, but when you look at the players and the form, yes, you're hoping that Salah and Mane and Firmino continue to nick those goals, what you need. Like Mane, I thought that Walker-Peters played fantastically against him, kind of really subdued him. But the fact is that when you've got your forwards and the great forwards who are not firing, and you haven't got Jota, like you mentioned there, Chris, to come in and help, Minamino's, it's not quite happened for him to come in and nick that goal. And then you've got the defence. I wouldn't say it's leaky, but if I'm playing against that particular Liverpool defence, if I'm Ward-Prowse and Danny Ings, we saw them construct a beautiful goal, you are feeling like you've got more of a chance. And when you look at Liverpool, who are still trying to play out from the back and play how they want to into a Thiago, they've still got to find his form in respect of his fitness and get up to speed so as he can then get those front players going. It's not quite clicked in that way. And I think that the form of those players, if their form gets better, then get a bit more confidence and then probably start seeing a little bit more from Liverpool. But at the moment, Kels, this is the time to try and put Liverpool under pressure.
Do you think that it's maybe a result of the fact that we have seen them go full throttle for so long now, that maybe this tiredness, this slight lapse was inevitable, perhaps? Does that always happen to top teams?
I can't say it's inevitable. If you want to say you're top teams, you have to be able to repeat. 2 times, every time be contending. For them, I think the issue is because the lack of confidence maybe in defense is there. So it can be difficult. Example, when you look at Trent Alexander and Robertson, to go forward, if you think in the back of your mind that you have to protect your centre backs, and that can be also an issue. Having Fabinho in front of the defence maybe reassure also the team. So I think it's a balance with the team is a little bit off balance, and I think that's a problem at the moment. So yeah, it's a great time, like Jan said, to put that team under pressure right now.
Let's just take a look. Oh, sorry, Sam,
I was going to say, it sounds like a little thing, doesn't it, off balance? But these are well-oiled machines.
Yeah.
We saw with Pep's Man City and Klopp's Liverpool, the reason they get nearly 100 points is because they've got fantastic players, but it's not just, Salah's getting them over the line with the odd goal. Everything's constructed perfectly to work. Everything, from the way it comes out from the goalkeeper to the centre-backs, the balance of the midfield, the way they get the ball in the spaces at exactly the right time. They're already on the half-turn. They're looking at, they can break through into the spaces. Everything works from back to front. And then you take out all of the centre-backs at Liverpool, all of them. And you drop the two best midfielders that Liverpool have got in Henderson and Fabinho into the back line. You've then got problems in the midfield as well.
Is that a bit similar to what we saw at City maybe last season with
Exactly, they took Fernandinho
yeah.
out and then they put him back and he did all right, but it wasn't the same as, with Laporte being out. And then they had the big problem in midfield with Rodri just coming in, new to the Premier League. In front of him, more counter-attacks. Rodri was coming in thinking, I don't have to do that many counter-attacks. And every week there was people just running past him. He wasn't used to it. And it's going to be the same thing with Liverpool. Like, a couple of the cogs are out of place, and then you get the knock-on, and then you get the front three who are so good, just lacking a bit of confidence because maybe they're not getting the ball at the right time in the right spaces. Like Trent Alexander-Arnold's a bit off form, so the ball's not coming in quite as predictably as before. Just all of a sudden, you stood in front of defenders thinking, where do we go now? Rather than you're already in behind them in previous seasons. And then the confidence goes.
The thing with it is as well is that people got to understand is you're not going to let Liverpool just continue to get on and do what they do, what makes them flow. Just like we're going to City. Like, if you let City do that, you'll get absolutely obliterated. So you have to try and stop them. We see the people talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, Trent is continuing to do what he does, but now people are catering for him. We've got to stop that supply so as that doesn't go in there, so as we can disrupt what they do. So then when it's not going to the forwards, like you say there, Sam, then they're starting to think, well, when's it coming? And then they get a little bit maybe more anxious. And then the team can see that, there is a little bit of a weakness. If we attack them here, we might... And so then what happens is that it comes down to you actually having to still play very well because teams are trying even harder to try and stop you and nullify you. And then when that's not happening and then you're not getting it from one of your forwards who all of a sudden can do that, then you're starting to think, that's when the confidence starts to seep away.
When we look at the Liverpool team and where the injuries are, as an ex-defender, do you think that they would have had the same problems had it been Salah, Mane or Firmino injured? What do you think the impact is on the fact that it's been the goalkeeper, it's been their arguably best centre-half?
It's going to still be a problem because at the moment the problem is they concede goal and they look like a team that's going to concede goal. But if you have the injury in the up front, then you have the problem, where's the goal going to come from to win the game? So I think it's a right balance, like we say. And also, like Wright was saying, and Sam as well, the amount of repetition that you do with the same group, the same players constantly make it a well-oiled machine. The fact that you don't have someone like Van Dijk, Matip or Joe Gomez also take another weapon away, what is the aerial threat. If you nullify and trade Alexander-Arnold or Robertson and the front three have a bad game, set pieces is also a solution to them. But right now they don't have all their weapon available, and that's a difficulty.
It comes down to the spine of the team being affected as well, doesn't it? In the same way with Fernandinho at Manchester City, the fact that Fabinho has now been pulled out of position at Liverpool as well, they've lost that spine a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's exactly what Chris was saying earlier on about the spine. And you question then about the forwards. Like, so if, for argument's sake, if Salah had got injured all season, it would have been a loss. But then you put Jota in. And if everything else is working, it's all right. So the season before when City, they lost De Bruyne, you think, how could they play without De Bruyne? But everything else was fine. They put Bernardo Silva in there, fantastic player. You'd never known there was an issue. Laporte was injured, so you take Fernandinho, you put him back there. Then you've got a problem in midfield. Sane was injured, so you've got a problem where they haven't got the width on the left because they had problems with the left backs. And all of a sudden, it's only a couple of players, but everything starts changing around. But like, if it had just been just Salah on his own, huge loss, but they could probably have done without him. But take Van Dijk out, and then all the other centre backs, you've got problems in midfield, and then the whole thing started to fall apart a bit then. But like I say, falling apart, they're still top of the league.
Yeah, that's kind of why I asked you that so early in the conversation, so we don't get too carried away. But let's take a look at Liverpool's results at this point this season compared to the same stage last season, and we know just how impressive they were. But this, I think, Wrighty, really highlights, doesn't it, the difference in the team, and maybe it's a difference in the league in general as well. Do you think other teams catching them up as well?
I think I have to still say that the injuries have cost Liverpool and their fluidity, without a shadow of a doubt. Because we're talking about if the forwards, if they do miss a forward, but they've got their full quota of defensive players, then you feel like we know that we're solid at the back.
Because they're still scoring. Look at
Yeah.
that, 42 goals last season, 37. It's only 5 difference, but there is a bit of a bigger difference there in terms of the goals conceded.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
You see, so like I said, with the forwards missing, like if the forwards were missing, they're not scoring, you know you're not conceding, so you're not going to be losing the game. So you don't lose that confidence knowing that, oh no, we ain't scored, so we're not going to win. We know that, because like when we played with Arsenal, we knew that if we scored, there's a very good chance we'd probably win that game because we're so confident in our back five. And I think that Liverpool were the same. So it doesn't make too much of a difference if the front man's not there. And we saw with Jota coming in, he kind of like was an able deputy, and this is why I worry for him, because of Minamino at the moment. I saw Shaqiri come on, it didn't quite make a difference, but in the back, if you can keep the back solid and then they can maybe nick something at the front, they could still win games. But now we're seeing that there is a little bit of a weakness with Liverpool in who's playing, where they're playing, and the fluidity's gone because Fabinho's back in there, Henderson was back in there. What I thought is because he wanted them to continue to play out from the back, to try and still do what they normally do to win games, but it's just a different personnel and lack of form.
In particular, they've struggled on the road as well, as we can see from looking at this graphic here, Chris. Just 2 wins away from Anfield this season, 2 defeats, admittedly, but look at all of those draws, and against teams like the likes of Fulham and Brighton, teams that they would have expected to win their games that they would have won last season.
Yes, it's very unlike Liverpool. Away from home, they've been very good last season. So it's surprising, but we were expecting that also because of what is missing at the back. And that's where you see the difference, getting a draw and a win. Those little details that make a draw a win. And at the moment, they don't have that.
No, it does look...
They're not defending horribly, actually.
No.
I mean, what was the difference? 21 goals conceded this season, 14 last year. I know you can't just say take the game out, but that's just the Villa game. Take the 7 out of that.
Yes.
Since Van Dijk's got injured, the defensive performance hasn't been horrible. I just think it's more about the balance, and it's what you lose, and they're just not quite playing the same way. Like you say, those small margins, all of a sudden it's 1-1 or it's 0-0 because you're not scoring the goals. And it's just little things like that. And that's why they are still top.
And you know how difficult is it to keep the same level of expectation when you have a Van Dijk and a Matip, a pair like that, playing together, and one gets injured. Normally, you have a third one who can come in, and it's not too bad. Yeah. But to replace both of them, that's a very difficult things to do.
It's tough for Liverpool to still be top of the league. Remember they lost the keeper for a while as well. You know, for them to not be at the top of the league, it's still an unbelievable achievement they're doing right now. But what they're going to have to call upon now is their experience, simply because when you are the champions like they have been, and when you have dominated like they have been, you have to find that. You have to find that attitude and that's intensity again, because you still have to be Liverpool, still have to be difficult to beat. And you have to say that once the forwards start nicking something again, it will then give confidence back to the rest of the team.
The league, but as I said at the top of the show, just how long for? Because Manchester United really breathing down their necks now, could be above them by the time they face off on the 17th. How much are you looking forward to that game, Wrighty?
Well, I think it's great obviously Man United fans around the world will be absolutely delighted, because the problem with Manchester United for a while was inconsistency in what they were doing. You didn't know what Man United were going to turn up simply because of the way they play. You know, Man United will play, they'll defend deep, they'll hit people on the break, and if it's not going great, they've got brilliant players to bring off the bench. Now, what's happened is that something's happened with the mentality, because they do seem a lot stronger in respect to their intensity and the form of the players. They're just playing a lot better, and the players that are coming off their bench are making a difference. So what is going to be interesting to see from Man United is that if they do, and I do feel that they may beat Burnley, if they do go top, is how they keep the consistency to stay there with teams like Liverpool and Manchester City and the Tottenhams and all the teams that's chasing them for them to continue to get those results. That's the only thing with Manchester United now. They're going to really have to go into the annals of their history to make sure that they tap into that staying there and sustaining and consistency.
You talked there about consistency. You mentioned that word quite a few times. That's certainly something Manchester United have showed with their recent form. These are their last 10 Premier League results. No defeats, unbeaten, just 2 draws. Be honest, Sam, did you see this run of form coming for United, particularly maybe if we go back to that Spurs defeat earlier in the season?
No, and it's United are one of the hardest teams to kind of nail down. And the coverage is so... There's always a problem with United. So you always get mad stats. So it was something like Solskjaer had got the best away record of like any United manager ever earlier in the season, but the home record wasn't there. And then things were going all right, and then went out of the Champions League. You know, they won the Champions League game 5-0 at home against Leipzig, ended up going out of the group stage, looks like a disaster again. All of a sudden, I mean, obviously we know where they are in the table, but I was shocked seeing that run of results there. I wasn't expecting that, no, like you say, the Spurs game. But this season, it's just like snakes and ladders. Like, I'll be on next month and we don't know where City
You've been doing too much
Liverpool,
at home with your little boy.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it's just, you never know what's going to happen. Like, we'll talk about Arsenal, Chelsea later on, but you know, going into that game, all of a sudden the fortunes have changed completely. Something's clicked for United, and for the life of me, I can't tell you what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. They've got good players. They've got a solid base, but there's no disaster now. There's no Champions League exit that's undermined them. There's no, the home form's this, the home form's that. Everything has come together, but as Wright said, is consistency. But the thing about this Burnley game is, that'll be the test for me. Because over the years, you know, last 5 years, whenever United have had the opportunity to go and do something, they were expected to do something. I remember a few years ago when they had Ibrahimovic up front, they needed to beat Bournemouth to get into the top 4, and they drew at home with Bournemouth. When they beat City a couple of years ago, they had West Brom at home. They lost to West Brom to give City the lead. When they played Villa last week, I thought, they're not going to win this. And they did. And now they've got Burnley, and it's like, OK, if they can get through that and they can go into that Liverpool game top, then we might be, OK, something's happening at United. But it just, this season of all things, I don't know what's going to happen. And United of all teams as well, like, you just don't know what's around the corner.
You could even say that about a missed opportunity with last night with the League Cup.
Well, again, that's always the thing, isn't it, I suppose?
Semi-final for Solskjaer.
Because they're doing so well, but then it's, they always reach the semi-finals but no further. You're never quite sure how good or how bad this United team are. It's always somewhere in the middle. But this season, with everything being so, it might be enough.
It could be.
Also, do we have to say this has been a good season for United? Because you've talked there about it being up and down, and it does feel like there's been quite a lot of negative press around Solskjaer and some of the runs prior to those 10 games that he kind of went on, some of the results that were in there, the Spurs one that I mentioned before. But surely when we look at the league table and we look at those recent fixtures, we have to say it's a good season, do we?
It's absolutely. It's so
no
difficult
one wants to
talk
answer
about.
this. This is the question that no one wants to answer.
It's a puzzling team. You look at it and you try to put the piece together and you're not sure. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we were thinking Solskjaer was in trouble when after the exit of the Champions League. And suddenly we turn our head and they're top of the league. And just by showing your graphic, they look like champions.
Yeah.
You look at the graphics, that's a graphic of a champion.
And they weren't bad draws either against City and
Just needs to be over a longer spell, though,
They
because
look like
obviously
a
that's what you
champion,
said
but
before.
as any of us have the confidence to say, like, they believe in it.
Why are you all sitting there without this confidence? 'Cause I even see Wrighty, you're not sure either.
It's only because this scenario here, Man United back in the day, it's when they click into able to win a game to go top, you're almost thinking, that's it now. Man United have done it. They've got where they want to be. They know how to finish this off. But when you look at the consistency in those results, you can't knock it and say, well, it's luck here or there and there. They've played well to do that. But in hardly any of those games going in, you could say, yeah, Man United are going to win this, no problem. They're going to do. What we're seeing from Man United is a team of brilliant players who realise, for me, that yes, we've got a chance of doing this. We can do this. And a manager that you've got to give him some credit in respect of the man management and the way he's managed the team, and Pogba's coming back into the team with all the stuff what happened with his agent. Fernandes obviously is the leader in there. You can see that, and Pogba playing his part in it. And for me, like Sam, I'll go with Sam. I'm going to say if Man United can now win that game against Burnley and show consistency once they get to the top, then yeah, you have to say that Man United have got a great chance of winning the league.
I would say that
nobody's sure.
I would want,
say you both knew that you looked sure.
I want a clearer idea of what Man United team game is At the minute, what I know is that they have firepower and a great squad. But I'm a little bit struggling to, in possession with the ball, to have an idea of what they're trying really to do. I understand that they have the quality to it, team on the counter, but in possession, against, like you say, the Burnley example, it would be a perfect example, and see what they do against a Burnley of a team.
It's going to be low block.
Low block. What is your strategy now? And I had difficulty to see that in the past.
And that's where Man United, when they counter-attack teams, fantastic. But their problem is when a team does put in that low block. Like what we'll speak about City, and what City have done now, what Pep has said is that we're going to just continue to pass till the opening comes, and then we're going to try and exploit. But Man United's problem has been to try and break down that low block. If they can do, then yes, Man United can win the league.
What about